Hey guys, and welcome back to the 2 Cents Podcast. This is Yossi Bensoussan. I'm here with my brother Ari Bensoussan, and we are on episode 4, continuing our second season with the Happily Ever After episode. This is by a long shot one of my favorite episodes that we've recorded to date. We're going to discuss the concept of happiness, the idea of happily ever after. Is there such a thing? Should we even want such a thing? What people mean when they say happily ever after, what kind of goal is a happily ever after. We really get deep into this one, and I just really love this episode. Today's podcast is being sponsored by the ZCK Foundation, and as always, our good friends over at Yadla, who you're going to hear about later on in this episode, discussing how people actually can get their fairy tale happily ever after ending to their life, or at least an ending to an extreme amount of suffering. Stay tuned to listen to that. Hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Hi, everybody. This is Ari Bensoussan.
And this is Yossi Bensoussan.
And this is the 2 Cents Podcast.
Brought to you and powered by Meaningful Minute.
Here we go.
Wow.
It's happening.
Wow. You want to know the amazing part of film? What do you call it? I mean, what people don't realize, one of the hard parts about this, Ari, is that like we have to stay in the same shape. We're not allowed to lose weight, even though though there was like 2 months in between filming just now.
Yeah.
We had
keep
to
on
stay
going
in
with the same
shape.
thing. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But the same thing the whole time. I look the same.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why, by the way, I just took a haircut. I gave myself a haircut. I'm going to tell the world this, Yossi. I'm going to tell the world this. And I know we have to get the stuff
with me. Yeah.
But I have not gone to a barber, I think, in 15 years or something. That's not an exaggeration. Number one, there's not much to deal with here.
I was about to say, do you think people are questioning that?
Yeah, no, it's not much to deal with. But it's not so much that I've saved about $19,000 at this point in haircutting, but it goes further, yes. It's much deeper. To me, going to get a haircut was a whole day event. You have to first go to the place. You have to wait there for an unseemingly amount of time just to get your haircut. Sometimes, do you remember in Pinot how long sometimes you would wait with those sticky magazines? And it's just like somebody shot JFK, like a People's Magazine from 1960. And you're sitting the whole time. And then finally, it's like, and the whole thing, people come and like, oh, am I next? Like, how are you next?
How are you next?
People
How are you next?
sitting here. And then the uncomfortable, because there's always a guy who has the other chair. There's the main barber, and then there's the guy who
and he's just looking at you.
And he's like, next, anybody wants haircut? You're all here for haircut. And everybody just wants the good guy. Not this guy who just got off the boat. He used to drive a taxi in Russia. And like nobody wants to break it to him. It's like the other guy's name is on the door. What did you think would happen? It's called Pinot. I mean, it's called his haircut place. And by finally some brave goes, nobody's going to go. We're like, we'd love to see what happens when you go. And then
it's amazing that people take for granted. And really, this could segue into our topic for today, which is that, Ari, how much does a haircut cost?
You know what? Nowadays, I wouldn't know.
I have no idea. I have no idea how much.
I have no clue.
A haircut, I could like at some point be like stranded or whatever, and for some reason I need a haircut. They could say $50, and I'll have no idea if that is it or not. I don't know. I have no idea. So the beauties of being bold. I have no idea how or why that just happened, but let's roll with it. Our topic for today: happily ever after.
So happily ever after. So yes, over here we're going to discuss this idea that a lot of times, and this really was born, B-O-U-R-N-E. In London, they use a U. I think they use a U. Yeah, no, I think they have that.
I don't think that's accurate at all.
No? Okay. So this was born out of a conversation. I was someplace. I can only be in one or two places. I was in Lakewood.
Please God, I was about to say, please God, don't say he was at a barber.
No, right, in a barber shop. That would really tank the whole thing. We'd have to start this episode from the beginning if I was in a barber shop. But no, I wasn't. And somebody came up to me and he said to me, I have an idea for a podcast you guys to talk about. Now, this is now a message to the world. Please don't come up to us, and start to tell us about different ideas. Because They come a lot. They're all great ideas. So
we're going to have an episode where we take all your ideas.
All the ideas.
And
just
we put
one
it into
episode.
one episode.
We're going to call it the junk drawer episode, right? Where you just pull it out and there's just random stuff inside the drawer. It's like, are those fishing hooks inside that drawer also next to the
basement
stapler and next to the half shaved down pencil? Like all those things. And the infinite amount of wires all messed off with each other. So
300 pens, not one of them work.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. The person came up to me and said to me, could you make an episode about the fact that when rabbis speak, they say that there's always a happily ever after, meaning they say how at the end of their story, it seems like, and they went off and they lived, they won the lottery, he got his job, they got married, he had children. He's like, there is no happily ever after. There's real life.
Right.
And a lot of times we end up getting kind of almost downplayed or almost feeling as if things aren't what they seem to be.
Right.
Because I don't get to live the story of the guy who missed the Titanic. Meaning we think the guy who missed the Titanic, right? The very famous story, let's just say it. The guy was going on the way and his wagon broke down and then the horse died and then all these different, there was mud and then there was a really long red light. It just didn't. And he kept on going. He was running. And finally runs up and that's the whole thing left. Oh, I missed the boat. Turns out he missed the Titanic. And that was it. Like, it sounds like his life is good for forever.
Right.
But it's not. That guy still had to pay taxes that year. That he may have gotten tuberculosis just right afterwards. Right. Stuff may have happened.
I think it also goes, yeah.
So his idea is that, could you please talk about an idea that part of the concept is that Hashem doesn't put into the world a happily ever after because the struggle is the happily. Meaning, yeah, go ahead, yes.
No, go ahead.
No, that his point is that if we can't find a happy in the struggles, then there's no happy. If we can't find the fact that itself, taking the responsibility for life and taking the struggle itself for the reality of this is what it is. The Nesiv Shalom, the past few weeks now, when we're taping this, we're in Parshas Lech Lecha Vayera. He brings from a few different beautiful svarim that tell us that the Yehudi, he says that Chaye Yehudi, that is it's tzaruf. He uses the lashon that it's just connected one after the other of nisyonot. That it's going to be a life where it's a chain effect of one nisayon, one test after another test after another test. And that sure, we get to have times where we get to relax a little bit. We get to finally move. Yes, I just moved. Baruch Hashem, here we are. We're in everybody watching us now. Yeah, it's a different background. I was going through a year and some change of trying to find a place to move. And I'm telling you, it was one of the biggest nisyanis of my life of Hashem, how come, and exactly how things are going. And not even questioning Hashem, but just like, when's it going to finally find its calm? Like when's it going to finally find its place? And the answer is that Baruch Hashem, we did hit a certain calm. Up until right now, it started raining now in Los Angeles. Right now it's raining. It's shocking. And all the pipes, the gutters of this house, they were never cleaned out. I signed a contract that said I'm responsible for the gutters. It's perfect. Yossi,
everyone in the whole California should be thanking you for the fact that it's raining right now.
Right now, Hashem was just like, oh, you never moved it. Yeah, let's just open up the marble. And so now, like, the whole thing is backing up. And, if I had a moose head hanging on the wall right now, it would be crying from all the water backing up from all the different things over here. Like the water thing in my ice maker in the fridge doesn't work, but all of a sudden now it's just working. Water's coming out of every... And so, no, there's going to be another test. There's going to be another test and another test. It's just going to keep on going. And so I wanted to dedicate an episode to the fact that it's not happily ever after because there is no after. There just is ever. There just is.
Right. So all right. So a few points here. And I love the topic. I really, really do, because I think it touches on so many different things. Number one, on what you were saying earlier about the stories. I specifically, by the way, in general, have started laying off or, throwing into reverse the whole, story part of my speeches. I really, unless it comes to me in the moment, I don't, which is why, like, it's always vague. Like, my stories are always so vague in my speeches nowadays, because I did not prepare it at all. It just came to me then, so I did it. I stopped liking putting stories in, contrary to our whole episode on the last season. I stopped liking putting too many stories in. I love using stories. I'm not saying not, but I don't like, because when you have a great story in a speech, I mean a killer story, I feel like when I do, Pesach Kron pulls it off, right? Rabbi Pesach Kron will pull it off. A few people could pull it off. I can't. When I have too good of a story, the speech tends to revolve around it, and then it becomes a point. It becomes too big of a point. My problem with that is that, for instance, all the Eliyahu and Navi stories, all the way, people take this too far. So they sit and they wait. They wait for their big epiphany moment. A lot of times when you have people who grew up, the guy was in Hollywood, or he was the greatest NFL agent's secretary in history, and whatever it is, and he became but through this big thing that happened, so everyone sits there waiting. They wait for their big thing to happen. Oh yeah, if that happens to me, then of course I'll also and I'll also go around speaking about it, and right. But that's not real life. That's not how real life works.
And yes, I just want to bring a point just a little bit. People think stories happen to us like that all the time. We're just, like we've said this a few times, paying attention, and people are sitting back not paying attention.
And you need to understand from that. This is going to be my next point. The whole point about missing the Titanic, right? So I'll have the modern day story of the missing the planes for the 9/11, or the now these stories are so dangerous to begin with. But aside from that, right, realize after that speech, I'm going to the airport, and if I'm running late or they're not letting me through the gate, I'm blowing a fit. I'm sweating. I'm all anxiety ridden. I'm like, Hashem, how could you do this to me? I just gave the speech and I'm still doing that also. It's not the be all end all. These are things that we work on to get to the other side of, and solely to your level, to your place. So that's point number one. Point number one is that I think a lot of times these ideas of happily ever after could be so much more harmful than anything else. That's number one. Number two is that there's no such thing. It's not that there's no happily ever after. I don't agree with that. I think there's no ever after. There's no happily ever after. There's no sadly ever after. There's no painfully ever after. There's no anxiety ever after. There's no stress ever after. There's no pain. There's no hurt ever after. There's nothing ever after. Whatever state you're in any given moment, it's never ever after. You still need to do something unless you're dead. That's ever after. That's literally ever after. That's the only ever after we have. Aside from that, there's just no such thing. So if you're in a great place and you're doing it right, the Mishnah says, right? If you're doing amazing and you're doing incredible, don't sit there being like, I guess I battled that demon, now I'm done. I get so many emails. I'm sure you also so many questions from people saying that I thought I passed this. I thought I fought it and it's over. That's not how life works. That's not how it works. We're waiting to get to the end of something that there's no end to. That's not how it works. So there's no happily ever after, but there's also no sadly ever after. There's no anything ever after. So if you're happy, be grateful in that moment. Appreciate that moment. Don't hope for it forever after. Hope for it for where you are right there. Because people tend to ruin good moments thinking about ever after. Right? You'll have a whole family sitting together at a beautiful get together, and they'll be like, I can't believe we're all leaving on Sunday. Like, why? Why are you doing? Like, just appreciate it for right now. Just now, I just made a backyard confession about this. Just now, one of my students said to me, it was abnormally beautiful in Cleveland last week. And he said to me, he's like, Rebbe, it's so beautiful outside. Can we go out? I'm like, guys, don't get so excited. Believe me, the snow's coming. Winter is on its way. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why did I just do that? Like, everyone's so happy right now with this. Why do I need to destroy that? So be grateful and happy in that moment. Don't force it to go to the next one. And don't be the doomsday sayer. So if you're in a bad moment, sit in that bad moment and know that there's no badly ever after. This is going to change soon. It's going to change. It's going to get better and it's going to be different. That's mitzad, all those concepts, all those. But I think what the real culprit over here is, and why it's so bad to have the happily ever afters, is because it's something I just alluded to, but it's just worth it to mention again. In the moment, the being in the moment. Happily ever after is that like, oh, I'm finally done with this now. I can find life is not something we try to get done with. It's something that we try to do in the moment. I also changed my background, my scenery over here, because there is no way that with my schedule, I get to be in one place at 4:00 every whatever time we do this, right? It's impossible. It's impossible for me, right? You just have to be in that moment, though. You got to be in that moment and be in, right? 10 minutes ago, I was superbly stressed about something right before we started filming. But you got to be in that moment. Just take that moment as it is and realize that happily ever after is the same thing as everything else in the world. You're either happy right now or you're not. Hey guys, I hope you're loving these episodes. I hope you're loving the podcast. Thank you so much for all your feedback. Thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing for us to be able to keep going. If you love these episodes, if you love the podcast, please download the Meaningful Minute app. It has so much bonus material, so many behind the scenes, so much added material. All these awesome things that they added to the podcast and the podcast page on the Meaningful Minute app. So go to any app store, your app store, the Play Store, or any of the other stores that you download an app from. Get the Meaningful Minute app. Hope to see you guys over there.
So in that moment is really, I think, where we want to go to now. Very good. Very, very well said. Which is that the struggle that is constantly in a person's life. People say it doesn't have to be a struggle. It is. Meaning certain things are be'etzem a struggle. Certain things will be'etzem be difficult. Avram Avinu, the way the Nesiva Shalom puts it is that the Pirkei Avos tells us that if you have three things that you're the Talmud of Avram Avinu, right? Ayin Tova, right? You have a positivity in life. You're happy with what you have. And you are somebody who is Nemucha, right? You're somebody who is humble, right? You have a Nefesh Nemucha. And finally, you're disconnected from the physicality. You're not somebody who's attached to those things. And the Siva Shalom asks, he says, how are those the three things of Avram Avinu? It should have said chesed, it should have said if you're achnasas archim, or if you pass 10 tests, if you pass 10 tests, you're Avram Avinu. It says those three things, which are basically hinted to at best inside the Torah. Anachi Afar ve'efer means that he was very humble.
I was about to say the pirushim over there on that Mishnah and Avos, they go through like gymnastics in order to really touch those up.
They say that, he didn't take the money from the Melech of Sidon. It must be that he's disconnected from physicality. Right. And who would ever do a lech lecha if he wasn't positive about life? Right. They're mafarshim, and 100% they're correct. Right, but it's not exactly the opener of the thing.
Obvious, the Pashut
meaning that if you would say you want to be like Superman, wear a red cape. It's like, right. You're right. Superman does have a red cape, but he flies and he has heat vision. Talk about the things that are more there. And Zok the Helen Siva Shalom is like, no, you're missing it. He said that when it comes to a test, incredibly, when it comes to a test, everything that you were given by Hashem naturally basically falls away. Your talents, your good looks, your brains, your money. All these different things by a challenge, your confidence, it all falls away because you're not comfortable with the challenge. Right. He said, and all you're left with is what you've earned through Mesiras Nefesh. Is what you've earned through yourself becoming big. He said, give a good look. You want to be the Talmud of Avram Avinu? These are the things that he worked on. These are the things that did not come easy. These are the things he had to work to become a Nechi Afar Ve'efer. He had to work on becoming. And he says, and those are the things that from those midot, he was able to pass the 10 tests. From those midot, that's where his chesed stemmed from. But the 10 tests and the chesed, he says, is only a symptom. It's only something that came after the fact that he had built these things. And so therefore, Pirkei Avos is letting us know the midas, he said, and that's what helps you pass. When it comes to a struggle, Hashem is letting you know, what were you kind of on your own? Meaning, if you became somebody who you worked on your patience and you worked on it and you worked on your bitach and you work on your different things, when these struggles, when these challenges, when these tests come our way, if you worked on it all the time, the good times and the bad times and everything else. And it became your moniker. It became something that's of value to you. And by the way, I'm so happy, Yossi, you said that you're like, when I get to an airport, I'm still stressing out. Yossi, so am I. But then that means that you and I, bitachon, we haven't been meiser nefesh enough yet. You know, it's because if Rabbi Avigdor Miller was sitting there, I would at least like to think that he would have been a lot more calm. You know, I would at least like to think that he would have been like, Hashem runs the world. And so therefore, you don't think he can make another plane? You don't think he can bring the plane right here? Like, I don't think the plane can get past TSA. I don't think Hashem can pass TSA. No. Chas v'shalom. No, but what I mean to say is that Gufa, I think tests and struggles are an exact just pin. It's almost a litmus test to let us know what are you comfortable with and what do you still have to work on. Right.
Also, yeah.
No, like just where are you still common? Like, have you ever been driving with your kids and like you go to a hotel with the kids and you show up there and the kids come with you to the front to the check-in counter, which is such a rookie mistake. Leave the kids in the car. And they say to you, I'm sorry, but your room's not ready for another hour. And your kids are like, oh, we're not getting a room? It's not happening? We're going to go around and go home? The kid at the checkout counter is us when we go to the plane.
Right.
Meaning in Shemayim, Hashem is like, Ari, it's going to take a little bit more time. It's going to work. We tell our kids, relax. The room's going to be ready soon. Like, don't worry about it. That's a place that if we earn it, not in the struggle, at the struggle, we will be able to have more of a calm. And no longer is it a struggle. Will there be a struggle? Yes. But you've learned to calm your way through it. And that's a test because you've earned it on your own.
Right. It's also, you know, I also think part of the thing is why would someone deny or why would someone... We have to understand that struggling is not an embarrassing thing. For me to say that I would struggle at that airport after I gave the speech about the guy who missed the plane, the exact situation I'm sitting in, the exact one. Number one, that's not hypocrisy. Number one, it's not a person working on something is not a hypocrite. That's not what hypocrisy is. That's number one. Number two, being able to share these things that I do, I would struggle with that. I would struggle with missing a plane. I would struggle with there's nothing, there should be, in the world now, there is. People say that, oh, you're being very vulnerable for admitting that. It's not vulnerability. I'm not embarrassed about the fact that I struggle with that. I'm open about it because I want to work on that. And I'm fine with that idea. To not have that incredible amount of busha of where we're holding in life, but rather be honest about it and say, that's where I'm working. That's where my avodah is. That's where simcha starts to come out from. Because then look at your life. What are you really, truly so desperately embarrassed about? And it's that shame, that embarrassment that forces people to not... Because then they put all their koiches in their excuses and justifications. Because they have to justify and excuse why they are the way they are. So they put all their koach into there and not into working on themselves. So the shame leads them down that road of staying the same, number one. Number two, fortifying staying the same by having all these things. But the first step, and this is what, if you're going to be about Avram Avinu, right? Sfas Emes says by Lech Lecha, says an unbelievable, you probably know that. I don't know, you ever hear something, you ever hear something and you're like, oh man, I think everyone knows that, but like somehow in the 30 whatever odd years that I've been learning and teaching and I think I just somehow sidestepped this part and never, but like anyone you'll say it to be like, you didn't know that? So I just learned this. I just learned this one. I don't know how I sidestepped it, but that's what happened. The Sfas Emes says on Avram Avinu that when Rabbeinu Shalom said to Avram Avinu Lech Lecha, it was a baskal. It wasn't just Avram Avinu. The whole world heard Lech Lecha, or whoever was listening. Okay, but everyone heard Lech Lecha. Everyone heard. What's pshat? Not everybody was leaving. So the teretz over there is really more based around Avram Avinu. But I want to focus on everyone else for a second. So what was the Rebbeinu Shalom saying to everyone else that heard the baskal? So Rabbi Berkowitz said an unbelievable thing. He said he was telling them just Lech Lecha. I don't care where you are. I don't care which one of these applies to you or doesn't apply to you. Just Lech Lecha, wherever you are. It's not good enough. Wherever you are, you can't stay stag. Wherever you are, Lech Lecha, take one step. Take one step further. Take one step into something. Take one step, take one step, take one step. Through all these things, our problem is that we view it as black and white. I'm either that person or I'm not that person. And what we have to realize is that what you said about Victor Miller. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to leave that because I'm not saying this about Victor Miller. But I remember some guy called me up and he said to me, can you take this and this kid into your yeshiva? And he wasn't right for the yeshiva. There's nothing I can do. It's a small yeshiva. It's for a very specific guy. He wasn't right. I gave him 3 other options and I tried helping him get into those other 3 places. We actually got him into one, but only after I was and the kid's doing great over there. But only after I had a fight with the guy. He's like, how could you? Where'd it go? He's like, I think it was in the beginning before he saw that it was Lamaisa probably the right thing to do. But he said, I think if Rabbi Trenk was around today, he would say to you, I'm like, listen to me. Listen, because I'm done with this. Everyone right now is all into all Rav Shlomo Freifeld, Rabbi Trenk, and all these unbelievable Rebbeim. And they're so right for being so into them. They were tzaddikim. They were unbelievable. But so Shlomo Freifeld, I wasn't around, right? I was too little. But I was around when Adelphia was around. Okay, my friends all went to Adelphia. No one was singing anyone's praises. Okay, no one was all machshiv what was happening. It's only after, all of a sudden everyone shows up now and they're like, wow. You were a Talmud of Rabbi Check. That's unbelievable. All of a sudden, everyone's all happy now about it. No one is going to be writing your art scroll book about you while you're still doing your thing. No one's going to be impressed. No one's going to be happy with it. No one's going to settle with it. No one. Not one person around you. No one. It's just the way it works. So we have to stop waiting for this fanfare around it, for this black. But when I read the book, and when Rabbi Trenk was doing his thing, he had all these people showing up saying, "Wow, and we want to do this and that, and we want to." Right? No, that's not how it happened. I'm not saying Rabbi Besser wrote an unbelievable book. Reb Sterling, I love you. That's nothing to do with this. I'm just saying that we tend to hear these stories, and we tend to think that was the go-through. That was how sweet and kind it was. I was talking to Rabbi Bashevkin, and if you see his book, he has a book called Synagogue, I think it's called. And I was reading an unbelievable book, and he has in the back, he wants to start this trend that when people write their bios, they also throw in 1 or 2 things that didn't work out for them. I have the book. Sender, are you able? On that bookshelf over there, you're gonna see a little white book called Synagogue. I have to read to you. It's right next to it. It should be like maybe on one shelf down on the spine. It says, yeah.
While Yossi's waiting for the Synagogue book, let's talk to you a word from the Eivishter.
A white spine.
Life is good. I created you out of love. Lord would love to have his relationship with you for now and forevermore.
No? The bottom? No? All right. It's okay. All right. It's not there. My kids keep moving my books.
Okay. It's fine.
I don't know where it is. The point is, he has in his thing, he has this in his bio, he tries to add in, and it says Rabbi Shevkin is a sought after speaker, and he does like this whole, what do you call it? And it says Rabbi Shevkin has been turned down for many honors and jobs in the past. Like, what do you like lists like it's an amazing, right? Because no, I didn't get this all right on the first time. I tried a podcast before ours and it failed horrifically. Right? This is what happens. This is what people go through. We need to be open and honest about that so people realize that I have an assignment, I have a test. It's not something to define myself by or be so embarrassed of, or it's something to work on. And by working on Lech Lecha, by taking one step at a time, I'm good to go on it.
Very, very good.
All right, Ari, we're going to hold it on for right there because it is that time of the episode where we discuss not only our sponsor, but our very, very good friend, Rev Nassan Gans, coming in right now. Now, we're talking about Happily Ever After. I mean, this one's an easy sales pitch. I guess we're wrong, right? I guess we're wrong over here. I mean, whether you believe in Happily Ever After or not, I only know of one place that it for sure can equal Happily Ever After. I'm going to let him tell you about it. Rev Nassan Gans, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. And you're right, Happily Ever After, a woman that comes trapped from an Arab village to living a happy life where she's married. Matter of fact, there was a woman, Maya, daughter of a Hamas sheikh. I just remembered it now. She married the guy who was in the rescue vehicle. That talk about a Cinderella story right there. And he learns in Koil now, and his son has big pace, and they went to Chaim Kanievsky. That's a happily ever after story because of guys like you helping to save a Jewish woman. It's a true story.
Reverend Asano, you need a backpedal on that. I'm sorry. What did you just say?
So stories like this. Maya, her father was a Hamas sheikh, and she was rescued by a guy who was on his way to becoming Baal Tshuva, and he met her, obviously. They got married. He has a long beard. He learned to koil for many years. Maya's kids look like yeshivish kids right now, and that's really happily ever after. And it could not have happened without you guys.
Amazing. That is, if that didn't just raise that 30 seconds there, if that did not just raise a whole family being saved, I don't know what's got to. That is enormous. That is so big.
You know, you guys spoke with the last episode about saving a family, and you're really helping saving a family and making someone's life well. So we need every penny, every little help, and we want to thank you in advance for your support.
Reverend Asano, it's always amazing to talk to you. That is really a true happily ever after story, happily ever after ending. Let's get more happening. SaveAWorld.org, guys. Get out there, SaveAWorld.org. Yadla and Reverend Asano Gans, you are my hero. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to talk about a little bit about the concept of a test because I think sometimes people get it a little bit wrong. You were talking about like being in the airport and being underneath the stress. I want to talk about for a second. So this past week, Avraham, my son, came home with the questions. The parsha sheet, and the first question is, what was Avram's first test? And the answer that Rebbe wrote was Lech Lecha, go for yourself. So I said to Avraham, what is Avram's first test? And he said, the Kivshin Eish, getting thrown to the fire. So I said, Abe, your Rebbe wrote Lech Lecha. So he said, yeah, but the Kivshin Eish happened first. Now, it's not like he's a big Talmid Chacham. I paid money. By Corona at some point or another to have the kids watch. They made this amazing Jewish kid video thingy of Avraham when he was a kid, of being thrown into the Kivshin Eish. Really an incredible thing.
On what? Give him a shout out. You remember?
So I don't know. I don't remember the ins and outs, but just the everything, the animation was really beautiful. I wish I did know it to go and to give. And so the kids learned all the ins and outs of Avraham's life. Like all the midrashim were there and everything. So Avram was holding really well with the Kivshin Eish. And so he said, well, the Kivshin Eish happened first because he said, I know that his father, Terach, gave him over and Lech Lecha means he's leaving from his father's land. So shouldn't the Kivshin Eish be first? So it happens to be that the Rishonim do have disagreements, that some learned that the Kivshin Eish was a part of his test. So Avram, though, asked me, how come according to over here, it's not a part of his test? And I believe that the answer is, and I've heard this said before, but I believe the answer is this. A test is only when you have a choice. Meaning, for Avram Avinu to either kill himself from Avodah Zarah or to keep on living, there's no choice. I'm not doing Avodah Zarah. So you're either going to kill me if I don't do Avodah Zarah or I do Avodah Zarah. There's no choice for me to do Avodah Zarah, so I guess you're killing me. No. That's not a test. A test is not when you don't have a choice. That's just a reality. The reality is, then that's it. Then I have to be Moshe Nefesh and I have to die. A test is when you have a choice. A test is when you have two things that are in front of you and you can't really rely on too much detail. And now you just have to choose. You're standing there by the airport. You're about to miss the plane or not miss the plane. You can choose to freak out. You can choose to lose it. Or you can choose to be calm and say, I've worked enough bitachon inside myself to be able to now just be calm and say, Hashem is the one who's making me miss the plane. I'm saying you can stop for a moment if you worked enough bitachon, and I'm talking about for myself now. If I worked enough bitachon to say that if Hashem literally came to me in a vision and said, Ari, don't get on this plane. You're going to miss this plane and I'm going to stall this plane or whatever, or the plane's going to leave without you. So then that's it. So then that happened. But then we have all these doubts that kick in. No, but maybe I came too late to the airport, or maybe the TSA is taking too long, or maybe it's because my bag was overweight. All these other things. Who said it's Hashem? Maybe it's my own. And there's so many gray areas inside there that you have to make a choice. You have to decide, is Hashem running this, or is this my own falling, is my own? And really, tests are things that are constantly demanding choice from ourselves. And it really, really is something that is very, very difficult to keep on going through. But ultimately, if we work on it in the times where things are calm, and we build that into ourselves when things are calm. Now, I do want to talk a little bit towards certain aspects, because I think in our audience, we do have certain people who may have this long. There are certain like fail safes that are so difficult to get past. And I may be getting myself now into just like a very difficult corner, but I want to talk about it. I want to hear what your take is, Yossi. There's certain things that people are either programmed with from beforehand that they can't get past, or that they just have in their own mind that it's so difficult. And the question is what they're supposed to do. Somebody who has a disposition towards anger, and they're just going to get angry about certain things all the time. I got a heart-wrenching email recently, about somebody who has a child, and that their child just has such an angry drive inside themselves. With myself, with misophonia, and by the way, this is where this conversation came from. The person who came to me to talk to me about that led up this whole thing, he said that that somebody in his family suffers from misophonia. That's loud chewing, loud noises, all these different things. He literally said,
And it's real.
And it's very real. Poor Yossi. Yossi has to go get help because I have misophonia as a child. I would mamish beat him up and stuff. But there are certain things that you can't call it a test of choice because it's so difficult in the moment. Right. And like, what's a person supposed to do at that? And there's still going to be a whole string of events that's going to cause anger. It's going to cause some kind of a failing inside a person. And what do you do?
Right.
And I believe my own take is that you're supposed to learn to just overcome or deal. Overcome means that you just say, Hashem is sending me a test, and I just got to get through this, and this is the best thing for me to learn control. And if you can't control it, then you deal with it. There have been times that I would sit at certain family events with earplugs when people would eat. And the same way that Yossi's owning up the fact that, he was losing it by the airport, I would own up the fact that I'm literally sitting there with earplugs at a family meal. And I'm not embarrassed to say this, that it was something. And by the way, if you look around, you're going to see certain people have earplugs by davening. The reason why is because they're very bothered by people who are davening Shema very loudly, or different things like that. Eventually gets to the point where Hashem is saying, are you willing to show that you're damaged? Right. And be okay with it. And be okay with it. Are you willing to show that, you know what? If Amazon had delivered me, you'd get your money back.
You've been holding on to that.
I'm just damaged. I'm just damaged. And you know what I'm going to do with this damage? I'm going to live my life. I'm not going to leave the table. I'm going to live. And you know what? Everybody's going to roll with it. We're all going to deal with it. And we're going to be okay. Right. If we can live to learn that way, so then ultimately, I think a person becomes a lot stronger from it.
Right. So I definitely agree. Where I would go differently here, and not differently. I would say all these things are in levels. I think all these things happen in levels. When it comes to an Asayan, it all happens in levels, and you have to I have to. Although I'm honest when I say I have to. On this, I think it's been a very long time since my Rebbeim have taught me this, so I think it becomes a little bit more natural to me. But I just had the good fortune or the mazel or the siyata d'shmaya to have those Rebbeim that are able to show that to me, and a mother who pretended everything was okay. So, but things go in levels. The first level is acknowledging that I have a problem with this. Not trying to make it everyone else's issue. So like you just said, showing up to a meal with earplugs is not saying, is not announcing, okay, everyone, no one hears allowed to chew loud because that's offensive. Like that's how the world is in such a dark place right now. We're not getting political, but I'm just saying that everyone else needs to take into account my sensitivities. No, I am going to own up my sensitivities for me. I'm going to, or if it's a sensitivity, that's the issue. right? Or if it's anger, I'm going to, right? My whole family doesn't have to be at the airport 4 hours early because I'm crazy around flying. No, they don't. I need to first own up that this is a craziness in my head. This is a good portion of people that will not take that one first step, and that's a prerequisite to everything.
Yeah, see, it took me years to get. It took me,
100%.
and you know that.
And me also,
years.
but me also. I'm saying everyone within their own thing. Everyone within their own thing to be able to say this is a silliness. And you know what it is? You know how many spouses get into arguments over things like this? Do you have any idea how quickly that argument not only gets squashed, but a loving relationship blossoms when one of them, let's say, right, is being late to an airport, right? Let's just keep using that example. Say it's being late to an airport, and you go outside, and instead of throwing the bags or like getting all, he turns to his wife. He's like, "I am struggling with this right now so much. This is such a struggle for me. I know it's crazy, but I'm struggling right now." How do you think she responds to that? She tells him, grow up. She tries to hide the kid. No. She wants to talk to him. She wants to help. She wants to do whatever she can over there. She wants to. Why? Because you're being open about the struggle. You're not saying it's everyone else. It's me. It's me. I get it that it's going on inside of me. Why can't we do that? So like we said before, because people don't want to be vulnerable and they don't want to open up in that way, and they don't want a show of a flaw in them. They don't want to. But that's what being human is. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. So that's stage one. Stage one is acknowledging that it's me and that this is an issue. All right, Berkowitz brings this up all the time. What drives you crazy about yourself? What sensitivities you have? What things do you have? What anxieties do you have? What things do you have that drives you crazy about yourself? Be honest that that's crazy, and that's your first step. Always that's your first step. That's number one. Number two,
he said, yes, I just have to give everybody the reality. He said that there was an Adam Chashiv in Israel that his wife used to leave candy wrappers around the house.
Right.
And it drove him, and Adam Chashiv, it drove him crazy. They got divorced. He couldn't deal with it. And he came to Rav Berkowitz, she leaves candy wrappers. And Rav Berkowitz said, and everything else, she was fine. Everything else, but he couldn't admit that there was a craziness inside him of, fine, so she's leaving candy wrappers around the house. And Enochanami, maybe she shouldn't admit. But to him, it was this all out, just hit the alarm, alarm fire, and that he couldn't understand. It's not just
the candy wrappers. She knows I don't like the candy wrappers, so she's doing it against me.
Right.
She's going against me, and she's not taking sense. It builds up this whole crazy story, this whole craziness in your head. And that, by the way, that's the and this is my next point. We have to know what the Yetzer Hara's game is. We have to know, because he is sly. He makes us think that his game is that we get angry. That's not his game. That's not his game. We're gonna, like you said before, and I thought that was so perfect. The Bechira over here is not in there. We're gonna get angry. That's gonna happen. If you're trying to work on something, you're gonna fall. You're gonna fall. That's what's gonna be. His game is to keep you down. Is to have you tell yourself all the stories about it. That's his game. Making you trip is easy for him. He holds all taivas adam in his fingers. Making you trip, he's made so much bigger people than you trip. What's his game is trying to weave this web that keeps you down. So what's the risk? So I was talking to one of my Talmidim last week, and he said, Rebbe, this, a specific thing, let's call it anger. Anger, never once have I ever triumphed over anger. Never once. I've never won over anger. I've never won the sign of anger. And I said to him, it's probably not true. Probably not true. You just have no idea how to quantify winning. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're born with innate taivas. You're born with innate desires. You're born with innate instinct. If you go for that's not even the Nisayan yet. So he says, so what's the Nisayan? I'm like, if you didn't get angry, let's say someone upset you, and instead of getting angry at him, you walked around the block once, came back, and then let rip. You blew a stack. You went crazy on him. You think you failed? You think you failed? You didn't fail. The anger was completely out of your control at that point. It's so overtaking you. It owns you to such a degree It owns you to such a degree that it never. My example of it always is, if I were to get into a boxing ring with a professional boxer, right? You put me and Muhammad Ali in a ring together. Muhammad Ali now, I don't know if he's alive anymore, but Muhammad Ali now and me in a ring together, still dead.
Yeah.
Me and then Muhammad Ali in a ring together. He's still going to kill me. He's still going to kill me. There's no one thought I was going to win going into that ring. But if I go one round with him, I will brag about that. I got knocked out the next round. Flat. First hit, one punch. I didn't even get hit before that. I just ran around the ring and he chased me. I would still brag about that for I lasted a round with Muhammad Ali. Are you crazy? So why? Because no one thought I was going to win. There was no way I was winning him. It was how long was I going to last before he knocked me out? And we need to realize that taking steps, lech lecha, taking steps means actually taking steps. Not taking steps to win. Taking steps to fight. It's the fight that's important. It's not the win. We can't, the Mishnah says, we have no idea, schar shel mitzvah shekemitzvah. We have no idea. We have no idea what the schar, we have no clue what the weight of it is.
V'lo hamelach alecha ligmor, right.
And we have no idea. We have no clue. We have no clue. So it's not on, we don't know. I don't know what the real Nisayan Hashem is giving me over here. It might be 10 minutes, and I gave up 10 minutes too early. That's the key. I might have given up just 10 minutes too early because 10 minutes was within my power. And by the way, when you hold back from something for 10 minutes, don't snort at that. When you hold back from something for 10 minutes,
it's a gibar.
That minute 11 is different. When you do actually fall to that time, when you do actually fall to that thing, it's very different. The next time around, you are going into the next Nisayan different. 10 minutes is you actually start developing that power to say no altogether. You do actually start developing that power. The scariest thing in the world for the Yetzer Hara is that 10 minutes. And the last thing I'm going to say about it is that the last level is also a just a mindset, is that we're not supposed to be perfect. But what does that mean? Not only are we not supposed to be perfect, we're worthless if we're not fighting. We don't want the happily ever after because we're worthless if we're not fighting. This is what I wanted to say
at the end, right?
So we're a blank canvas, right? If I buy a blank canvas and I go back to the store and I say, I see you sell art over here. I would like to introduce you the most perfect piece you've ever seen. And I turn around the same blank canvas I bought. They're like, I don't understand. There's nothing on it. I'm like, well, it's very clean. And they say, it's certainly uncontaminated by paint. So I'm like, but it's so clean. It's perfect. It's perfect. They're like, that's not what art is, though. That's not what beauty is. Beauty isn't perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be that you did something on there. You splattered it with paint. You did something on there that no one else has ever done before you. You have done something on there that is completely original and beautiful. That's the idea of a paint. If our concept was to be perfect, then don't do anything. Just lay in bed all day. But that's not what we consider perfection. That's not what real shleimus is. Real shleimus is getting dirty. It's getting dirty, but making a tapestry out of it. That fight is the tapestry. That fight, you paint in your own blood from that. That fight is the real deal.
Beautiful. All right, yes, we only have about like a minute left, so just to end off, happily ever after is not something that is a Jewish concept. Like what we're trying to explain, and Yossi really said it so beautifully now. Nobody ever wanted the ever after, because if there was a happily ever after, there would be no more struggle. If there's no more struggle, then there's no point. The purpose of life itself is to be able to take on the responsibilities, take on these challenges, and to be able, like Yossi just said, to paint our own tapestry, to be able to go and to build our own life, to go and to show that we're made of bigger stuff. And even if we fail at the end, but ultimately, nobody's ever ran the 26 miles without really trying to push themselves that first mile. Meaning that if the person never ran that first mile and then gave up and just like breathe, but okay, so you fell over, but you gave a mile, meaning that is the same thing. If you gave into your anger after 10 minutes, but you got a mile, you got 10 minutes, that's a mile. And then next time you can hit 2 miles, you can hit 20 minutes, et cetera, to keep on building yourself. And so to answer the question, The reason why there is no happily ever after is because there's just happily inside what it is itself. Because of that, you should be happy in purpose. You should be happy in building yourself. You should be happy that the struggle itself is what makes us bigger and makes us greater Yidden. And with that, hopefully we will, B'ezrat Hashem, reach our tafkid in this world.
Right. Right.
Yes.
You know, when a person gets old, I think just to end, when a person gets old, I think what old people realize why they don't care, why they just, the older a person is, the less they care about anyone, like what they think or what they, I think it's just because they look around, they're like, you're not better than me. You're not. I'm saying you didn't not struggle. You didn't not have a taiva. You did not have we're the same. We're all the same. Don't think that just because I get to be on camera, I'm better than you. That's not how that works at all.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. All right, yes. Chazak Baruch. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This has been another podcast with Baruch Hashem, the 2 Cents Podcast, powered by The Meaningful Minute. Ari. I'm Ari Bensoussan.
I'm Yossi Bensoussan. Take care, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye.